Friends, this is Gilbert Andrew Garcia of A Tip from Gilbert. Talk, inspiration, and prayer. Today, we'll be having a rebroadcast, but as always, we'll see you next time. Friends, this is Gilbert Andrew Garcia of A Tip from Gilbert. Talk, inspiration, and prayer. Today, we'll be having a rebroadcast, but as always, we'll see you next time. This is Gilbert Andrew Garcia of A Tip from Gilbert. Talk, inspiration, and prayer. Listen to my show every Monday from 11 to 12 on KWWJ 1360 AM, KYOK 1140 AM, KCOH at 1230 KCOH.com, Sankeet Radio at 95.1 FM, 1460 AM, and Latino Sports, KEYH 850 AM. Call in at 832-570-8075 and follow me on social media. See you then. In Harris County, you got me, a tip from me, talk, inspiration, and prayer. Of course, that me is Gilbert Garcia. And we have a great guest today, and that is Mr. Christian Menefee, of course, who is our county attorney. And Christian, welcome to the show.
Thank you. I'm happy to be back on.
The term, the unexpired term, and we're going to go through all of this, Houston, Harris County, the unexpired term of Sylvester Turner, which again was the unexpired term of Sheila Jackson Lee.
Right.
And then, of course, we'll have a new primary in March. We're going to go through all of this, and he's running. And I expected when he walked in that he was going to be a little tired, but not Christian.
No.
You're like ready to rock and roll.
Yeah. So typically, anytime before like 2 p.m., I'm good, and anytime after 5-ish p.m., I'm good again.
Well, you know what? I tell you what, I really mean it. It has been heroic what you're doing, because you've been active, fulfilling your duty as county attorney throughout a lot of this.
Yeah.
And now you're running, and you're everywhere. You really are everywhere. You're one of those candidates that is touching the people all over. How's it been? I mean, how's it been campaigning everywhere and so under this whole cloud of, this cloud's a bad word, but this whole cloud of uncertainty of when is the election, when are people voting, all that. I mean, how are you going, and how's it? How's your wife handling all this?
Yeah, so there's definitely been an overcast, and so I think cloud is the appropriate word. Just given that, I would have never thought when I first took on running for the 18th congressional district that the governor would delay the election. So that we would now be about 9 months with no representation. I would have never thought in a million years that the President of the United States would pass unpopular legislation and then would try to tap governors across the country to gerrymander their districts in the middle of a decade just so he can try to protect the margins, because he knows that the laws that he passed are going to be deeply unpopular and he's going to lose in the midterms. So this has been just the most unexpected wild ride, but I'll tell you, the fuel that has kept me going has been the people and communities that I'm going to talk to. I'm going out across the district and talking to people, and they're like, hey, I had a cousin, and when you all fought against the deed fraud and got people their homes back, that was my cousin. One of those people was my cousin. Hey, I have a friend who has benefited from this thing that you did. I want to get involved. How can I get involved in the case? So that's been the fuel. And then the other thing that's just kept refilling me each and every day has just been my family, man. Like, my wife, who is a full-time attorney herself, and our 2 boys. It's just been a beautiful thing. My oldest Gabriel's 4. My youngest Malcolm is 1.5.
Oh, my God.
Yeah, joy of my life, man.
That is a wonderful... I remember when my kids were that age. Of course, now they're all grown. In fact, I became an empty nester, my wife and I, in September, because Juju, who's my baby and my only daughter of all 4 kids, just started U Chicago.
Oh, that's beautiful.
And you know what? I miss her terribly. Yeah. Enjoy these moments, because soon you're gonna be like me, and you're gonna be like, how can that be? And what happened? The
best parenting advice I ever got about the transition that your kids go through is, if you just keep going to sleep and keep waking up, your kids are gonna be old very soon. And I've seen it now. We're just like, my oldest, whereas before, he's a baby, he required all this stuff he needed from me.
Yeah.
And now he's coming home and speaking his mind.
Wow.
Daddy, are you still Menefee for Congress? Is that over yet?
How interesting. He's already confused himself about, well, Daddy, is it next week or is it next month or is it?
That's right.
What are the lines, Daddy?
That's right.
And he's probably more informed than most because you know what? He's there with you all the time.
Yeah.
Because I don't believe, this is just Gilbert Garcia, citizen talking, the media is trying, but I still don't think the media is covering all these iterations as well as they could. Now, of course, you could say, well, how can they? And we're going to go through them all. But right now, we have Dwight Boykins on the line. Let's get Dwight Boykins on the line because we all know he is running right now for city council. And Mr. Dwight Boykins, are you there?
I'm here, Gilbert. Good morning.
Good morning to you. Let's turn up that volume on him a little bit. You have me and, of course, our county attorney and CD18 candidate, Christian Menefee. And, Dwight, how are you feeling right now? And, what's the election is when? Go through everything. And how are you feeling?
Oh, we're feeling real good, man. First of all, let's say good morning to my brother, Christian, who's running a fantastic campaign.
Good morning.
And he definitely has my vote. And we feel real good, man. We think the numbers are falling in our favor. The turnout is low, but the boxes we're looking at all in favor of the ones we're counting on are in favor, 90% favorability for our race. But we're pushing people out, Gilbert, as much as we can. And, whatever the numbers are, as long as we have one or two more than our opponent. And speaking of my opponent, let me just tell you what's going on for your listeners, Gilbert. There's a lot of misleading and I'm going to say lies that my opponent is putting out on me. That's not true. And they take a little bit of something and trying to make it into something as big. But let me be clear. The emails and the texts we're getting back, people are not buying into it and don't like this negative campaigning. The interesting thing, I don't even know this lady. I just met her on this campaign trail. And I thought she was a very, very nice lady when I met her. We were running a good campaign. But she has tried to run the most negative campaign I've ever seen, man. And it's interesting enough when we got issues facing the city that are very important. And a lot of people don't even know this. I had a very short conversation with the mayor early on, and we were talking about the city's revenue. And what people don't realize right now to this day, if this last quarter in the city, if the city does not, if the residents of this city does not step up spending, and fill this $53 million gap, it's going to hurt with the city's balance in its budget because the sales tax revenue that we need right now are down right now, at least being projected to be down. And we have to make that in order to balance our budget. And then you have the East Water Purification Plant coming up. A lot of people don't realize, Christian, that 73% of the water we drink and use in the restroom and shower with comes from that plant. Mm-hmm. We're trying to determine how we're going to pay for the renovation or a brand new plant. There are a lot of issues facing the city of Houston that are up on us, and we're not focused on them. This lady who running in the race with me is spending more time trying to waste people time looking at some negative website or whatever they put. Don't know a darn thing about me. I've never even met the woman prior to this race, but all of a sudden she knows a lot about me. And one other thing, let me say this to you. I would bet you $10 she probably don't know where Spring Hill Street is in South Union. She may not know where Lawndale is because she's not from Houston, but she want to spend a lot of time talking about what she want to do for this city and the needs and the concerns of the people, but want to spend 90% of her campaign trying to speak negative about me where people know better. So we're excited about the campaign. We're going to win it. We're going to be at the old Sheraton Hotel election night off of 610, and hope you guys can come on out.
Well, I appreciate all that. I got one of those pieces of mail recently, and it went straight to, what is it called, file 13? It went to straight to file 13. I didn't even mess with it. And, my own experience, and I've done a few campaigns, and people know that I ran for mayor, et cetera, is when things happen the 11th hour, the old October surprise we used to say for presidential election. That's typically a sign of desperation you're running behind. So that's what they call in football a fourth and long, Hail Mary. Roger Staubach to Drew Pearson, that's what that's called. And so we understand.
I like that football team you use as an example.
There you go.
Thank you to say it.
Well, let me ask you this. I just want you real quick. tell everybody Election Day is when, and tell everybody your website if they can still donate. Give it all. Give it all.
Gilbert, first of all, thank you for your platform, Gilbert. Let me be real clear. I appreciate you, man. You and your family, what y'all doing for the city of Houston. I said it once and I said it again. I wish he was our mayor. Hope you consider it in the next run because you'll be a damn good candidate. Nothing against nobody else. I just know how you balance our city. Number one. Number two, early voting is going on right now. Today and tomorrow, the last 2 days for early voting, and election day is this Saturday, the 13th. We need everybody to turn out. We had a great response this past week. I want to thank Pastor Trevor John Caldwell, Suzette Caldwell, Remus Wright, Joe Ratliff, Terry Anderson. We hit all the churches and they responded real well, making certain we get the African American vote in particular out, which is the base, to make certain that we turn the numbers. But HRBC came out and endorsed us on Friday. We have a Spanish-speaking officers, Houston police officers, African American police officers, African American firemen, Hispanic Fire Association. Everybody in the city is helping us, Gilbert, get this vote out to win this race. And again, my opponent is just running a dirty campaign with all the money she done picked up from a law firm, and it's not going to win. Last comment, you remember Tony Sanchez had $100 million and lost. Money doesn't win a race. My good friend and your good friend and Tony Busby had a whole bunch of money and lost the tournament. Money doesn't win the race. You got to get out and vote, and I think we will. And good luck to you, Christian.
Well, you know what wins races is getting out there, touching the people, and having a record of success. And that's what you have, my friend. Dwight Boykins, thank you for calling in. We wish you Godspeed. And I'm ready to take the hill. Let's go.
Okay, thank you. Good luck to you guys. Thank you.
Thank you, man. Dwight. That's a good segue because he mentioned that right now you can vote Saturday, but of course you're not on the ballot. Yeah. So let's go through the iteration of the ballot so people know, because I think a lot of people in CD18 are probably thinking, because they hear a lot about the campaign, right, where's Christian when they go vote? So let's go through some of that if you don't mind.
Yeah, sure. So let me start with the main point, which is my runoff election is January 31. Early voting is going to be the last week of January, and so that is the month that I want everybody to remember. January 31.
January.
That's right. How we got here was the governor delayed the election when he initially could have set the election to take place in June or July. He chose November. So the first round election was November 4th, and with 16 people on the ballot, my campaign came in first place, which I was frankly elated just by the grassroots level of support that we've seen. Right now, there is also a city council runoff going on. As you know, we just saw one of the candidates call in right now for that. But I'm not going to be on that ballot because I'm on the January ballot. So people in the current 18th congressional district, set aside all the gerrymandering that has been going on. This is neighborhoods that run as far south as 3rd Ward and parts of South Union, as far north as Humble, and just south of Bush Intercontinental Airport. Those folks are in the legacy 18th congressional district. You're voting January 31. But just a few weeks after that, early voting will start for the primary, and that's going to be a different district.
Yeah, hold that thought. So then they're voting here January, and this term goes from now to when?
Great question. That term goes from the moment that all the votes are counted in that election until December 31 of 2026. It could be early January, but let's just say the term that ends at the end of 2026. The March primary is the start of the process for who gets to serve starting January of 2027. And that will be in a new district. But right now, we're still running to replace the unexpired term of the late Congressman Sylvester Turner. And I'll tell you the real travesty about this. The governor and the late congressman had a relationship. Like, they knew each other, were familiar with each other.
Yeah, because the congressman was a state representative for 40 years or something like that.
That's right. During the time period that the governor was a Supreme Court justice, was the attorney general. And in fact, when Congressman Turner passed away, the governor and his wife put out a statement saying that they were devastated, but when it was time to take action for the district, the governor delayed the election. So this race that's going on right now is to decide who gets to go to Congress immediately at the start of February.
Very interesting. And so whoever wins, and I think you're going to win, but whoever wins is going to serve that term, and then right after that is now a primary for what would be the district. Talk about what that district will look like now with the changes in the lines.
Yeah. So.
And how much of it is overlapping?
Not a lot. I'd say about 30%. So
Wow.
whereas the current 18th Congressional District, the legacy, let's say, the legacy 18th Congressional District had about 75% of the district was north of downtown. So you got downtown, 3rd Ward, but you're going all the way north. You're hitting a little bit east of downtown, but you're going out to the Heights, to Garden Oaks, to Oak Forest, and then you're going up to Acres Homes, 5th Ward, Kashmere Gardens, way out to Humble, to parts of Klein, parts of Aldine. The new district is basically flipped over the downtown axis. So you're now going incredibly south.
Wow.
And it's going to pick up neighborhoods like Herm Clark, like Sunnyside, like South Park, way down even into parts of Missouri City.
No kidding.
Yeah, and it will keep downtown. And as far as north of downtown, just a sliver basically that goes kind of northeast of downtown. But all the rest of that area will no longer be in the 18th Congressional District. So it's going from a north of downtown district to a south of downtown district.
And those people that were north of downtown that are in the district now,
Yeah.
they'll be in another district with a different congressperson.
Yeah, their congressperson will be Sylvia Garcia in the 29th Congressional District.
Wow. You know, it's just hard for these people that have known Sheila Jackson Lee for decades and Sylvester Turner for decades, and now they're getting to know you. It's just amazing that they're going to now say, well, God, I've got someone new.
Yeah.
That doesn't know my neighborhood, that hasn't been to my church, that hasn't been to my school, that, you know, no offense to Sylvia Garcia, but the point is you're losing the continuity.
That's exactly right. And this is part of the reason why you saw these Democratic members fighting as hard as they could to try to stop this. The intent of this was racist from the outset. The president had his DOJ sent a letter to Governor Abbott, and they asked that the state of Texas target these majority-minority districts. And so this was based on race from the jump. A lawsuit was filed after the maps were approved, and there's a 3-judge panel in these Voting Rights Act cases. And one of the judges was appointed by Barack Obama, one was appointed by Ronald Reagan, the other was appointed by Donald Trump. And when they made their decision, 2 of the 3 agreed that the maps were racist. The opinion was written by the judge who was appointed by Donald Trump. And for more than 100 pages, he went through all the evidence in great detail and said that race was the predominant factor in drawing these maps. And here's why. He laid it all right. He called the maps racist, a guy who was appointed by Donald Trump. Unfortunately, the United States Supreme Court overturned that decision, but I think it just goes to show these maps were so bad that a gentleman appointed to the federal bench for life by Donald Trump said this was racist. And so now all these communities are the victims of that decision. Now you can have communities that have never been a part of this district or that district being lumped into a new district and having to navigate what comes with that. So it's incredibly unfortunate. I wish that we were not in this position, but I'm going to do every single thing I can to represent the legacy district as best I can for the rest of this year, while also having a campaign in the new 18th Congressional District to win their trust as well.
That's unbelievable. In many ways, you almost have to have a forward-looking campaign already.
Yeah.
Because you already know, and I think you're going to win. You already know. And by the way, is this settled now? It's
Yeah.
settled, and there's
For
no
the near
more.
future, yeah.
There's no more lawsuits. I mean, in other words, the 18th is going to be now flipped. It's going to be more south.
At the very least, for the next few years, that is the case. Yes.
Okay. Remind me though, and maybe I'm just not clear, that when they did the census, and let's just remind all of our voters why this is also so unusual.
Sure.
Is typically we have a census every 10 years.
Right.
And so people go around and they knock on doors and people fill out information, and then they use some statistics to make it sort of round it out. And then they get all the census data of everyone in the U.S., and then they carve up the congressional districts to be able to get sort of homogeneous sort of neighborhoods, but also you got to fit the new census information.
Yeah.
As states grow more population, they should have more representation.
That's right.
So you've got to reapportion, and what's been happening is on the Northeast has been losing seats, and the Southwest, primarily Florida, we've been gaining, the Southeast, we've been gaining. And so that's been the normal way every 10 years. Is that right?
Yeah, it happens
Keep
every
going.
10 years so that you can assure what's called apportionment,
Yep.
which is an equal distribution of seats based on population throughout the country. Texas just got the 38th Congressional District, which is held by Wesley Hunt, and that process happens every year. It is very rare for it to happen in the middle of a decade. It is never in the history of this country happened in the middle of a decade at the express request of a president. Never happened in the history of the United States.
Is that unbelievable?
It's absolutely unbelievable.
You know, we are rewriting civics class right now because not only then now it happened here in Texas, but essentially all the red states are doing it. So now the blue states are finally, and everybody knows I'm a Democrat, but I'm trying to be nonpartisan on this conversation. Sure. Yeah. But the blue states are now saying, well, golly, if they're doing it, we got to do it too. And then it's going to become, in my view, a never-ending arms race.
Race to the bottom, yeah.
Of just continuing to, as governments, meaning the governor, et cetera, change hands and power, they're going to just do it again and again. But wasn't there a lawsuit from the original 2010 census or 2020 census? Yeah. Where is that lawsuit? Does anyone even remember that lawsuit?
Yeah, so in 2021, right after the 2020 census, the maps were redrawn, and it stripped some minority communities of representation. So Congresswoman Sheila Jackson Lee and some other folks filed a lawsuit against the state of Texas over that. And interestingly enough, the state of Texas in that lawsuit said these maps were not drawn considering race at all. But then fast forward, when Donald Trump had his DOJ send a letter over here, it said, hey, your maps were drawn based on race. And the state of Texas was like, yeah, I guess they were. We have to do something. They just completely did a 180 on their position. But where that lawsuit went, Gilbert, was the lawsuit was still ongoing, but when the new maps were approved, that lawsuit supplanted the old lawsuit. So the old lawsuit is gone because the old maps are gone. And so now they're litigating these new maps.
Oh, my goodness. So in other words, they just said, you know what, we were litigating those maps from 2020, but we're not going to do it anymore.
That's right, because those maps don't exist anymore. Now we're fighting over the current maps. And, you got to think, we all understand in this country that voters are supposed to pick their politicians, not the other way around. But what we've seen recently is just this push for more and more gerrymandering. And most people don't know the reason why this is so absurd is because the maps in any given state are not drawn by Congress, right? You would think, oh, the maps apply to Congress. They're drawn by Congress. No. In fact, in the states, they're drawn by the state legislature. So it's an entirely state process. So that means that Donald Trump had to get on the phone and call Greg Abbott and call leaders in the Texas legislature and say, hey, do this thing that's going to hurt people in your state, but I need you to do it to protect my margins in Congress. And what we've seen is there have been some states that have refused to capitulate. But Texas, Governor Abbott showed absolutely no backbone in this at all. And what I think is so bad about it is, I'm a Democrat. I cannot think of a single Democratic politician who was president of the United States who, if he would have called me and I was governor of Texas, I would have done that for him. Yeah. Not a single one.
I mean, it's also interesting because how do they justify it? I mean, everyone knows what's happening.
Yeah.
But how do they justify it when they're talking, in the media and so forth? Or do they just say, well, I got a call from the president and we just got to is it power to the max and we just got to maintain control?
That is such a great question because how they've described it over time has changed.
That's what I'm getting at.
It's changed. So at the beginning, they said these maps are racist because of this case, and so therefore you got to change how you draw them. They knew that was going to get them in big, big trouble because all the cases out there have said when you start having race as your deciding factor when you're drawing maps, you're violating the United States Constitution and the Voting Rights Act. So they pivoted, and what they did was they tried to nestle under the safety of a former Supreme Court case that says that you can redraw maps based on partisan ideology. So as long as you're just saying, I want more Democrats, I want more Republicans, and that's it, that's okay. The problem, though, is that Texas was the first state in this process, and they hadn't done their homework yet. So they based a lot of it on race, whereas these other states are not talking about race at all now. They're just saying, no, we want 2 more Republicans than we have now, so we're redrawing the maps to get those 2 more Republicans. It has nothing to do with race. It has to do only with political ideology, and that's legal per the Supreme Court. If I get to Congress, when I get to Congress, I plan to wholeheartedly support a ban on gerrymander, a ban on partisan gerrymander.
Good for you.
I don't care if you're a Republican, Democrat. We should not be having a state where only Democrats are representing in Congress. We should not have a state where only Republicans are representing in Congress. That's right. It's reprehensible.
It's ridiculous. Well, what's interesting is the concept of you got to be careful what you ask for because you might get it.
Yeah.
Because now I know in California they're going to be having, of course, their own sort of redrawing of maps, et cetera.
Sure.
And there's going to be a lot of Republicans who are going to lose, probably some very rational ones. I don't know for sure, but very good members of Congress that are going to lose their positions. So in other words, be careful what you ask for because you might get it. Or another way is what's good for the goose is good for the gander.
What I'm really nervous about there, Gilbert, is that what if the United States Supreme Court blocks the California maps after allowing the Texas maps, right? And so that's why at the debate the other day, my opponent and I were asked, would you support adding additional seats to the United States Supreme Court? I said yes, wholeheartedly. My opponent said no. But I believe the Supreme Court has lost its mind. If you see the decisions that they're rolling out, scaling back 50 years worth of reproductive rights that were granted to women in this country, they've already taken a look at other rights that they can potentially roll back. Decisions like giving the president full immunity for all the things that he's done at any given point in time, it's disastrous. And what I'm most concerned about is that the United States Supreme Court is now playing for a team instead of playing for the people. That's a real problem.
And it's become, in many ways, too partisan.
Yeah.
And what's funny is they don't have to be partisan because they have lifetime appointments. So they should have no pressure to respond to if their power, if the president in power is their party or not. They should have no pressure, and they should call it like they see it. But in reality, it seems to me they're becoming more partisan.
Yeah, I think one of the things I've learned just from working around federal judges is part of it is just who they spend their time around. A lot of the revelations that came out about Justice Clarence Thomas that were so egregious about trips that he was taking that billionaires were paying for, all these gifts that he was getting. But a piece of it that's not talked about that much is how deeply entrenched his wife is in the conservative movement, the ultra-conservative movement, right? Talking about the Trump issues and trying to make sure that he gets immunity, right? The very cases that he's working on, she's out giving speeches on. And when you just think about who these people spend time with on a regular basis, the social circles that they're in, part of their decision making, I bet, is guided by, I play for a team. I'm in a circle. I'm with this team. My wife is with this team, and I'm going to make sure that at the end of the day they win and not the other folks. And I just think that that's horrible, and it should not be how our court is working.
And what happened to justices like Thurgood Marshall, Brennan, even Powell? What happened to these that were just sort of like above it all?
Yeah, Sandra Day O'Connor.
Yeah, she was great. Yeah. What happened to that? And when do you think that turned? Is this just modern times?
I'll tell you what happened.
Go ahead.
Two things. One is the Federalist Society, which is a right-wing think tank that basically grooms young people to become staunch conservatives. And then over time, they get them into the best law schools. After law school, they get them into the best jobs. Then they work hard to get them appointed to the bench. The second thing that happened is Fox News. When conservative media came into this, there was no 24-hour news channel that had an ideological bend, right? You weren't looking back and seeing CNN be like lefty, and there was no MSNBC. Fox News really started that. And Roger Ailes came in and just propagandized a generation. So now you have these folks on the right who believe that it is their job in media to make sure that everybody sees the world the way that they do. Not to call balls and strikes, not to report fairly, but to convince people to be conservatives. And that's just created this element on the right that frankly just doesn't exist on the left, right? Justice Sonia Sotomayor can write just about whatever she wants in an opinion. There's not going to be a coordinated effort to undermine her or anything like that. But if the folks on the right go against the grain, there's real powerful forces out there between the big money, between the big media. And this is not conspiracy theory stuff. This is like well documented over time. So I think that folks over there have been radicalized, and now it's permeating in politics. And it's the reason you're saying people leave Congress. You're saying folks on the Republican side leave Congress at a record rate. We just out here have in Texas, we've had multiple members like Morgan Luttrell, like Troy Nehls out of Fort Bend, who no longer would be in Congress because they're not in charge of their job anymore. Now the president unilaterally dictates what they're supposed to do and what they're not supposed to do. I think it's high time that we have a court and we have a Congress that is separate from the White House, that is separate from the partisan hacks who hang out, and instead focused on what is best for the people. How do we best make sure that we use the power of the purse to empower people to deal with the affordability crisis and many other issues in this country?
I know we have two callers. I just want to get one more thing in before we go to, was it Dominic? Was it Jordan? I forgot which one. We're going to, hold on, Dominic, if you're there. And Jordan, please don't hang up. You mentioned something. I want to get this out there again because I think the citizens need to know that the whole thing about representation is the drawing of the maps was meant to be something taken away from Congress and done at the state level.
Yep.
That to me sounds great because you eliminate sort of, I don't want to say self-dealing, but
self-interest.
Self-interest. You eliminate that. That's great. And it's meant to be by getting sort of outside parties, and then the state can come up with, do we want to do it in the legislature or do we want to do some sort of bipartisan commission to do it?
Right.
But they can come up with their own way to do it. My goodness, how do we lose that? Because it was set up to prevent the very thing that's happening.
Yeah, we lost it because there was only one party that supported ending gerrymandering in this country, and that was the Democratic Party. Bills have been put up before Congress. You never see Republicans support it. There are states out there that have bipartisan redistricting commissions, right? These are folks that are not in any way concerned with politics. They're just, how do we best draw the maps to reflect the diversity of our communities? In Republican-run states, they've always been hyper-partisan, but Donald Trump changed the game, right? The sole metric of any elected official's success in the Republican Party, there's only one metric. That is, how much loyalty have you shown to Donald Trump? And if you haven't, he will primary you. He will put big money against you. And so many folks on the Republican side, instead of doing what's in the best interest of the people they serve, their one question is, what does President Trump want me to do? And that's what they do.
Wow. Hold that thought. Was it Jordan that's still there? And hopefully Dominic called back or not. But Jordan and Dominic, if you're listening on the radio, which I bet you are, feel free to call in. Jordan, are you there?
Yes, I'm here.
Jordan, you got me. Gilbert Garcia, the tip for me with Mr. Christian Menefee, who is our county attorney. Let's not forget, he's already been a public servant, and I want to go through some of that because you've done a fantastic job. But he's running for, of course, to be a member of Congress from CD 18, and he's doing it in two different ways. One, the existing lines, and two, he'll be running for the new lines. But what do you got for us?
Yes, that's awesome. I just had a question for Christian. What was the moment in his career where he knew he wanted to be in politics, or like when did he know he gained this passion for politics?
Ooh, that's a great one, because think of it this way. When there was young Christian walking the halls in elementary school or junior high, how did you know, I want to be a public servant?
Yeah, well, let me start by saying it certainly was not in the hallways of elementary school or junior high. Part of it is just kind of my story. When I was growing up, there were many nights I would not have eaten were it not for the WIC program. There were many days I would have been at school on an empty stomach were it not for free lunch in our public schools. My parents only purchased their first home because of VA down payment assistance, which let them put only $500 down, and that's how we got our first house, and that was when I was in high school. I was only the first in my college to go to college because of a Pell Grant issued by the Department of Education. Went to law school on my father's post 9/11 GI Bill, and my brother survived cancer because of my parents' military health benefits, which fully funded his bone marrow transplant, and he's been in remission for more than 20 years.
Wow.
So that was government that did that for me. There's that old saying by former President Ronald Reagan, government is not the solution, government is the problem, right? And there have been so many conservative commentators who have talked about trying to shrink government down so much such that you can fit it in your pocket. I've seen government work. Government took my family from being one that had sent more people to prison than to college to having in the bloodline of the family the first African American and the youngest person to be elected as Harris County attorney. I have so much debt of gratitude to a thoughtful, to a compassionate, to a helpful government. So when I got out of law school, I had never really had money in my life. So I went and started working at a law firm, and things were going well, and I was happy about that. And then all of a sudden, in 2016, Donald Trump wins the Republican primary. And I say to myself, well, I'm not a Republican, but a lot of people in this country that I love are. And the fact that so many of them could support a guy like this, who is not only, patently unqualified, has the emotional intelligence of a 12-year-old, all these things, and he won the primary, you know what, I got to get a little bit more involved. Mm-hmm. Both of my parents were military. I was always taught that you have to stand up and fight for the democracy you want to see. So I started getting more involved. And that's what got me on the path, ultimately, to deciding that I wanted to do public service and kind of show an integrity and an unselfish leadership that I saw lacking in the politics. But Donald Trump is who got me off my tail and pulled me out of the private sector to come and do this government thing, because I just saw things going so awry. I mean, you could look at Mitt Romney, George W. Bush, all these folks on the Republican side who have either been president or been in a position to be president. And I disagree with them on many things, right? but they didn't shock the conscience, right?
Yep.
They weren't, proposing all of these things like deporting U.S. citizens and sending them to prisons in places that they'd never been. They weren't doing every single thing they could to get rid of abortion rights in this country. They weren't cutting SNAP benefits and ensuring that we had the largest transfer of wealth in the history of this country from the have-nots to the folks who already do have. Donald Trump changed something for me, and it wasn't him. It was the fact that people in this country could embrace him. So I got off my tail, decided to serve, and I haven't looked back since.
It's kind of like that was your aha moment.
Yeah.
When you said, you know what? It's got to be better.
Yeah.
And so I'm going to wrap up something, and you agree or disagree or chime in. When people talk about the Democratic Party, of course, everybody knows I'm a Democrat too. There are fundamental differences between the Republican Party and Democratic Party,
Sure.
and neither one of them are meant to be mean. It's all about the Democratic Party. We believe that government has a responsibility to be active in our lives to make our lives better.
Yeah.
Republican Party believes that the government is really in the way, it's too inefficient, etc. And what's funny about that is people that are on the other side, they don't like government until they need it.
Yeah.
And then when they need it, there's a catastrophe, if there's a chemical spill, if there's a tornado or a storm, boy, where's the government? Where's FEMA?
Yeah.
And then they want it.
Right.
But my view is government's there to make our lives better. Is it perfect? No. Could it be better? Of course. But the solution isn't to pitch it. The solution is to get involved and make it as good as it can be for the citizens. What do you say to that?
I say that's absolutely right. Look, there is a lot of waste in government. Of course, every single form of government, there's a lot of waste. There's a lot of waste in corporate America.
Yep.
But sure, there's a lot of waste in government. I've seen that firsthand in working in government. But that doesn't mean you abolish the whole institution, that you try to shrink the whole institution. And if you look at it, most of the folks who want to do that, they're already doing just fine. Mm-hmm. And they feel like they'll continue to do just fine. But you're exactly right. When there is a large-scale disaster, when there's a natural disaster, when there's a chemical spill, that's when they want the government to intervene. And then on the flip side is when they can get subsidies for their very large corporation, to step into a new industry, right, to be a market entrant and not see the same obstacles or barriers that some of the other folks saw, they're all for the subsidies at that point, right? I think it is high time that we ensure that we have a social safety net in this country that makes it so that nobody is having to choose between putting food on the table and paying for life-saving treatment. That nobody in this country is earning $7.25 an hour. In 2025, I was making $7.50 an hour pushing carts at HEB in like 2007. There's no reason.
Can you imagine that?
There's no reason why somebody should be making $7.25 in
right.
2025.
My goodness. I have so much more to say, but we have Dominic, and Dominic's been very patient. He's been on the phone. Dominic, what do you got for us, pal? You got me, Gilbert Garcia Tiffany, with Christian Menefee.
Gil, can you hear me?
Yes, we got you. Go.
Okay. I'm going to make this really quick because of the time. What worries me about this constant redo, we've had a congressional redo several years ago within the states. So this is like the second rodeo on this. My concern is this, two concerns. Number one, I do understand the constitutional thing of reappropriation. Some of the constitutions were really smart about that. I get that. But my thing is, when you don't have stability, and these maps being changed right on top of an election, people are going to say, this is the thing that turns people off of government. This turns people off of voting. This turns off people from wanting to be involved, like going to City Hall or Metro or county government, whatever, or talking on the phone now. Second of all, I think there's something else we need to consider. And I learned this riding to 65. I was doing something for my mom, doing a trip, doing some business for her on the 65. And I went all the way out past the Beltway. And that is the part of Houston that is the United Nations of Houston.
Yeah.
I saw people getting on with various ethnic dress. They were speaking ethnic languages, but they were, they paid their fare, they sat down, and this opened my eye. Right now, this whole thing is basically black-white. But what about the people down to 65? A lot of these are new people to our nation. They want to be involved in our nation. And, they're kind of like shoved down with all of this. And, this is not the way we should be showing how our government works to the rest of the world. I mean, I think, and with that, I'm going to be quiet and let y'all two discuss this. Thank you, Gil.
Well, we thank you for calling in, Dominic. You're always a good man. I think what he's trying to say is, shouldn't we be celebrating diversity rather than putting obstacles on immigration and things that is, well, let me say it another way. The value of this country, or the greatness, has always been the richness of the diversity from the beginning of time. That's what the Statue of Liberty is. That's what it's all about. I think that's what he's trying to comment on. And we're kind of like losing that.
Oh, it's horrific. The Trump administration has sent mass ICE agents to terrorize communities. They've sent them into schools. They sent them to places of worship. They've sent them to Home Depot parking lots, right, in cities across the country. And so many folks in our communities have their own experience and trauma that comes with this. I think about my own. I have a close family member who's undocumented. Came to this country when he was underage and was brought over by his parent. Did everything that was expected of him. Went to high school, did well. Went to college, did well. And now pays taxes and works and benefits our economy the same way as anybody else. He was the victim of a road rage incident during this campaign. And they beat him to a pulp.
Oh my
He wouldn't go to a
goodness.
hospital. He wouldn't go to the police because he was scared that Donald Trump's mass ICE agents were going to ship him abroad. That is not how our immigration system should be working. It should be one based on compassion and based on dignity, and that acknowledges the great contributions that immigrants make to our society, and trying to find a pathway for immigrants who are following the law, who are pouring into our economy, and who are adding a net benefit to our country. There's so much that can be done on the immigration issue if folks would just have an honest conversation about it. But I find so many times on the right, Republicans are just not trying to have a fair conversation about it. You can't try to paint every immigrant as someone who has murdered someone or committed armed robbery, because the truth is that is a minuscule amount of immigrants in this country, a minuscule amount. But that's what they focus on. And they use that as an opportunity to tie up the rest of the immigration system and not push for reforms. But, I just misspoke there. I said Republicans do that. It's not true. It's not Republicans who do that. It is Republican elected officials who do that.
That's right.
And there are a lot of people in this country, Democrats, Republicans, Independents, who want a fair immigration system that gives people a pathway to citizenship in order to continue contributing to our economy. I, for one, would be eager and active in that conversation when I go to Congress, because we need it. We very much need a real conversation to happen.
Very good. Well, what's interesting, there you go. Thank you, studio audience, because, that's what you call speaking truth to power. What's interesting is, yes, it was Sylvester Turner, but it was for a short period of time.
Yeah.
It really is, when I think of CD18 and the history, people who've been there for such a long time that really wrote the history, whether Barbara Jordan, Mickey Leland, and Sheila Jackson Lee.
Yeah.
I mean, you're going to be in some great company, so to speak, and you're going to be filling some big shoes.
Yeah.
Are you ready?
Yeah, I am.
Sheila, there must have been like 5 Sheilas. You know what I mean? Because she was like everywhere.
Oh, yeah.
And I was Metro chairman, and she would call in sometimes if she couldn't be there, and she wanted me to put the phone on the microphone.
Oh, yeah.
So she could address the people and answer questions. I mean, she was a force. Now you've been, I'm going to come back to this question because we have another caller here. I want to talk about, because you've done something great, and I want to give you all the kudos that you deserve. The county attorney has always been, in my opinion, I'm just one citizen out there. I'm your average Gilbert, as they say. It was always kind of a sleepy job somehow, and you never really heard about it. Not you. I mean, you brought it to, like, my goodness, and you've used it for to really have a voice on all these major public policy trends. Think about some of that, because I want to bring that into the call. But we have I think it was a Brian up there. Was there a Brian on there?
Yes. Can you hear me?
You got it, my friend. Go for it.
Yeah, it's kind of along the lines where you were just discussing. I was going to ask, when is it most strategic to compromise in politics, and when is it necessary to take a hard line, combative stance like you have in some of your lawsuits?
Yeah, it's a great question.
Yeah, where's the balance?
Where's the balance? For me, it's always been just staying true to who I am. And, who I am is somebody who grew up in the situation and circumstances that I told you about earlier, I grew up in a working class family. I've seen how dangerous it can be when government doesn't work. I see how dangerous it can be when communities have been forgotten, when they're not invested into. And so a lot of red lines grow out of that, right? But the flip side of it is, I'm also somebody who went and worked in corporate America for a number of years. And when I was at my first law firm, it's a firm with thousands of people, there was a time where I was the only black associate in the litigation team in the entire firm. A firm of thousands of people, right? And so I often worked with people who didn't look like me, who didn't see the world the same way that I did, who had different politics than me, and I thrived. And the reason is because I knew when it was time to gear up and to have a fight about an issue, and I knew when there was time that we can compromise and work together. So my guiding principle has always been, am I protecting a community, and can I help a community? So am I protecting a community if there is some policy position that is being pushed that is going to substantially harm a community, whether it be the expansion of a landfill, whether it be allowing the permitting of concrete batch plants, whether it be cutting SNAP benefits? Those are red lines for me, right? Ending birthright citizenship immigration in this country, those are red lines for me, and I will stand firm on those every single time. And in fact, when you're dealing with bullies, you got to throw punches back. So I've done that. But then there's other instances where it doesn't matter if you're black, white, blue, green, red, orange. If you want to work with me and we're going to bring resources to a community, I'm happy to work with you. So, for example, there was a landfill that a company wanted to extend more deeply in a neighborhood on the northwest side of town, Carverdale. I teamed up with our Republican County Commissioner, Tom Ramsey, and together we were able to block that landfill from being extended more deeply into that community.
Great. Good for him.
And bipartisan effort, right? Cigarette companies were pushing vaping products on our kids, trying to get them hooked on vaping, knowing the harms that it could cause. And I teamed up with our Republican Attorney General, whose name shall not be mentioned. And we were able to go after these companies and get tens of millions of dollars to come back to the state to address those issues. There's a time where punches are absolutely necessary. There's a time where you can work together. What I found is in my time in politics, and I just got elected for the first time in 2020, so this is, in the Biden presidency, now in the Trump presidency, the MAGA movement has really made it a more fight atmosphere, because the president is so willing to step outside of the bounds of norms that we could all expect we didn't do, right? No president would ever consider saying, I know that the United States Constitution, drafted all those years ago, says that if you're born on U.S. soil, you are you are a citizen of this country. No president would say, okay, I'm going to turn 200 years of precedent and the language of the Constitution on its head and say that those people are no longer U.S. citizens. No president would think to do that. No president would say, hey, Department of Justice, I need you to go prosecute this Attorney General out of New York. I need you to go after this other politician because they said things that were not nice to me, or because they went after me. So now I want to weaponize this DOJ to go back after them. No other president would say we need to impeach this judge because they ruled a way that I don't like on an issue. And because of that, because there's no more norms, it's become much more fight atmosphere, which I'm perfectly fine with that. I get up every morning, go to the gym. I'm in relatively good shape.
You're
so
ready.
If
You're
a fight is
ready.
what they're looking for, let's do it.
Well, what's interesting, though, is it's great that you're ready to fight, but what I admire about you is you really look for what do we have? Here's my issues. Here are your issues.
Yeah.
Where do they overlap? And let's focus on that.
Right.
And we'll fight when we need to fight. But when there's no need to fight, let's focus on making some good decisions together, like you and Tom Ramsey, for the people.
That's right.
That's beautiful.
I mean, look,
That's what it's all about.
That's exactly right. And look, if we spend all of our time vilifying our opponents, right, or like making it personal when we do go after them, you're not going to be able to work together on a lot of stuff. So what I've worked very hard to do is you're not going to find many examples of me personally attacking an elected official, saying this person is a bad human being, they're this, they're that. Now, what I will say is this decision by this person is unconscionable. It harms these communities, it threatens these communities, but I try not to personally attack folks. And then, on the flip side of it, if there's an opportunity for me to work with somebody, it doesn't matter if it's Governor Abbott or whomever, I'm almost always going to be open for that. Even when I go to Congress, if the Trump administration had a proposal that was going to address issues in my community, was going to spend funds in a way that I thought was going to be helpful, I'd be happy to partner with them on that. Now, I am not keeping my hopes up for that because I understand how this administration operates. But I look forward to being able to try to work across the aisle where I can. But I may be trying to work across the aisle with different people, because it's been announced just today that Republicans are expecting a mass exodus from Congress. So many Republican congresspersons are disenchanted with how the president has completely supplanted Congress's authority time and time again, how he has stripped individual members of any type of influence that they had, that now they're getting out the building as quickly as possible.
Well, you know the great irony of that? They're in the position of power, the party.
Right,
And
the party is, yeah.
normally, the people that get frustrated are the minority party.
That's right.
And I don't mean it ethnic. I mean, meaning they control, they have more seats than we do.
Right.
And therefore, I don't get good committees and no one pays attention to me, blah, blah. Normally, they're the ones that get frustrated. For the power, so everyone who's listening, Houston, Harris County, when you have the one party dominating the Congress, and that's, of course, Congress is the legislature, which is, of course, the House of Representatives and the Senate. So there's two chambers. Typically, the party in power really likes being in power.
Yeah.
It's very unusual that you're having these high retirements or just quitting when you're the party in power. It's very unusual.
Yeah. It's super unusual. And the fact is that no one can deny exactly why this is happening. We all know. It's because the president, the Speaker of the House, the President of the Senate, they're all the same person. Donald Trump.
They're all the same person.
Everybody knows this. Donald Trump is running people out of the building because the moment that they want something different than what he wants, it's unacceptable. He doesn't allow them to represent their districts. He doesn't allow them to vote their conscience. He doesn't even allow them to run away from issues that he wants to put at the forefront. And he makes decisions without in any way consulting the rest of the party, without trying to be in line with them. I mean, if you look at some of the decisions that he's made recently, for example, he just granted a pardon to Congressman Henry Cuellar in South Texas.
And again, Henry Cuellar is a longtime represents Laredo.
That's right.
And he's a Democrat. Go ahead, please.
That's right. I'm sure that is something that Republicans in South Texas wanted to try to hang around his neck on the campaign trail. Mm-hmm. But the president said, no, I don't care. He issued a pardon. He had that very famous meeting with Zohran Mamdani, the mayor-elect of New York City, and I'm sure that Republicans across this country wanted to attack Democrats in the next electoral cycle, saying that they are all a bunch of Zohran Mamdanis, who I think is fantastic. But when Trump had that meeting, he said, oh, he seems like a fantastic guy. I think he's going to be a great mayor. Right? He one of the things that people love about the president is he is only concerned with, he can't be tied down. So he will take a number of positions because he can't be tied down. But that's also one of the problems with him, is he is unpredictable. If he feels a certain way on a Tuesday, he will wake up and declare that Somali immigrants are disgusting and garbage and need to all leave this country. And that unpredictability is exactly what you don't want to see out of a president. And the last thing here is, I talk with my friends who are in the VC world, who are in the venture capital world, who are in the private equity world. These folks do not like the uncertainty that comes with an indecisive president. Our foreign policy is incredibly indecisive. So one day the president can announce tariffs. 3 days later, he's decided he's going to roll them back 50%. 4 days later, China's done something to piss him off. He's going to ramp it back up. When that happens, people cannot do deals that create value because they don't know what the conditions are going to be like. And if you're in a deal process and you get to the end of it, it's not what you expected. Now you've lost a bunch of money. So he is overall harming our economy with his unpredictability. But it just goes to show that in today's day and age, a celebrity can be elected if they just have enough celebrity and know how to say the right things.
Well, we feel that in my business because, of course, we manage money for a living, and being unpredictable is very difficult.
Yeah.
Because how can companies put money to work, invest in CapEx, which is capital expenditures, or investments rather? How can they do that if something's going to change right away, a new tariff or something? And here's another one. One of my colleagues that works for me, she's Ukrainian. So she's from Ukraine, and of course she talks to her family. A lot of them are still there all the time, and it's dreadful over there.
Yeah.
And what's interesting is one day he's like, "We need to do more for Ukraine," and they're doing, and then another day it changes, and then we've gone through that like 4 times.
Yeah.
How can anyone in Europe, all these other great leaders, realize or come to a decision of, is the U.S. going to be protecting Europe like NATO and like it was intended to do?
Sure.
So we don't refight World War II, right?
Right.
I mean, that's the whole point.
That's right. And look at how it's even impacted folks domestically, right? Small businesses are now not able to get as much capital because of all the cuts at the Small Business Administration. kids aren't able to access college and workforce development programs as much because of the cuts at the Department of Education, right?
Right.
Farmers across our country are now losing a lot of the government funding that they used to get when the crops would harvest. All of this is impacting the average Joe and Jane in this country. The same unpredictability that some people liked because they thought it was entertaining is now hurting people's pocketbooks. And so that's why you're seeing all these issues about affordability in this country, is because it's not just that our economy is taking a hit, it's that the poor decisions of a poor leader are causing things to be more expensive. It's causing less money to be in the average person's pocket, and that's resulting in an unaffordable country. That's part of the reason why I believe President Trump wanted to get a room with Zohran Mamdani and wanted to praise him. He wants to be cool with him because he understands that he is capturing something that people feel very much right now, which is, why are you talking to me about drawing maps? You should be talking to me about the price of eggs, about the price of milk, right? About how it's more expensive now for me to fill up my car and go to work than it was before. About how there's less job opportunities available to me. There's less housing in my community. Rent is skyrocketing coming out of COVID. Why are you talking to me about redrawing maps? That's what the president is focused on, right? And I think that's becoming a problem for the average American.
Well, what's interesting is if you go back to Clinton days and James Carville, the whole thing he said was, it's the economy, stupid.
Yeah.
And that's the whole point, because that's the bread and butter of what's on the minds of the American public, which is, can I live the life I want to live and have kids and or not?
Yeah.
And that comes down to, can you afford anything? And every year it seems like, we're a small business. Every year it seems that our insurance costs go higher.
Right.
Everything's going higher. Getting data is getting higher. It's like, holy cow, when does this end?
Yeah.
Property taxes, because the way we have this regressive tax system, which is, property values go up. Well, there we go. My taxes are going up. But they're going to say, we didn't raise taxes, but
right.
yes, you did. Or you are doing it.
Right.
When are we going to stop the insanity?
Yeah. Well, I'll tell you, in Texas, no time soon.
Remember that movie Network when he goes, "I'm mad as hell. I'm not going to take it anymore." Right? I mean, but that's a movie, y'all, from I forgot when, like the 70s. Anyways, but go ahead. I'm mad as hell. I'm not going to take it anymore.
Yeah, look, I think the best thing for this country is when we have folks from both political parties in power in office, right? When you can have honest dialogue, when there are not districts that are drawn so that it's 80% Republican or 95% Democratic, so that people are only focused on their primary votes and they're not focused on what's the best for the American people. Now, I believe in a government that allows me to talk to my Democratic colleague, to my Republican colleague, and we try to work out a solution for what's going to put more money in people's pockets, right? I believe in America where the politicians are not focused on redrawing the lines, but they're focused on how they can ensure that people are getting housing. I believe in America that isn't ensuring that we have 500,000 people each year who are filing for bankruptcy because of medical debt, right? In a country that should be guaranteeing health care so that every single person can get access to care when they need it. Instead, folks are hiking up prices so that a few large corporations are making billions and billions of dollars while people are struggling to keep the lights on and not able to get the medication that they deserve. I believe that Texas will be at its best when we have folks from both parties who are running the legislature, who are running the governor's mansion, where we have a diversity in our state so that people can have the conversations and there can be a true two-party system. Right now, the president is running the White House, he's running Congress, and he's running the United States Supreme Court. Here in the state of Texas, the Republican Party is running the governor's mansion, lieutenant governor, both chambers, the Texas Supreme Court, and the Attorney General's office. So to the extent that anybody believes that Democrats are the reason why folks are suffering right now, I assure you that is not the case. We need to have true two-party representation. We need smart people to continue running for office, smart people whose hearts are in the right place, who aren't doing this to go viral on social media, who aren't doing this to be in the little in crowd and go to the galas, but who are doing this to really advance the communities that we serve, to make people in a better position to get their shot at the American dream. That's what government did for me. That's what I'm trying to do for other people.
My God, I'm ready. Damn it, let's go. I don't even know if I can say damn it. But Houston, Harris County, you got to vote for this man, CD18, because you know what? I loved it all. And I just want to say, before we go, because we only have about a minute, and you said what you wanted to say, but give one more where's your website if people want to get involved? Are you having any events or anything? Where's the headquarters? If people want to get involved, let them know, because I think you touched the hearts and minds of a lot of people out there. There were a lot of things you didn't see it, but I saw a lot of text messaging, emails coming through saying a lot of good things about you. So remember, there's the TV, there's the camera on you. How can people get involved?
I'm Christian Menefee, running for Congress in the 18th Congressional District. The election is March 31. Early voting is the last week. The election is January 31. The early voting is the last week of January. We need you to vote. Vote in January, vote in January, vote in January. We need your vote. Every single vote that turns out is going to help us win this thing. January 31 of 2026. Turn out and vote. Go to ChristianMenefee.com. That's how you get involved. If you want to be part of a campaign that's looking to change our nation in the hearts and minds of people, go to ChristianMenefee.com. Join the team and make sure you vote January 31.
There you go, Houston, Harris County. And like my mama always said, if you don't vote, don't complain. And don't forget, if you're looking for good carne guisada, go to Taqueria Laredo, because it's Laredo Taqueria. I say tomato, they say tomato. At the end of the day, it's all the same great food. Go there. Thank you so much. And listen, this man, he's going places. This is what we need in our government. Ladies and gentlemen, Gilbert Garcia saying we'll see you next time. All right, Houston, Harris County, this is Gilbert Garcia of A Tip from Gilbert, Talk, Inspiration, and Prayer. We're going to now be on television. We will air every Saturday on Comcast 17, AT&T Channel 99, Phonoscope Channel 96, Suddenlink 99, and also HMSTV.org. Every new episode every Saturday at 7 p.m. And follow me on social media. See you then.